Hello and welcome to Historyporium. In this episode, we take a look at the top 5 most gruesome and humiliating punishments used by the Tudors. Number 5. Beheading, also known as death by axe. Beheading was a fashionable and high-class method of execution, often bestowed on those of noble birth because when done correctly, it was quick, painless, and relatively dignified. There was no vomit, no undignified struggling, and no need to see your bowels being ripped out. Anyone who was anyone among the condemned would opt for a beheading. Famous executions of this variety include highly fashionable characters such as Mary Queen of Scots, Lady Jane Grey, and Anne Boleyn. The speed at which death ensued totally depended on the skill level of the chap in charge of the axe. There are gruesome tales of botched executions, such as that of the Countess of Salisbury, who was hacked multiple times to the head, neck, and back by an inexperienced executioner. 11 blows later, the Countess kicked the bucket. Often, the heads of the accused were placed on pikes on London Bridge in a final act of humiliation. Number 4. Hung, drawn, and quartered. The ultimate price to be paid by men committing high treason in the Tudor era was to be hung, drawn, and quartered. High treason was defined as any attempt to undermine the king and was deemed to be the worst crime that a person could commit. The creative brutality of the punishment reflected its severity. First, the criminal would be strapped to a wooden panel and dragged through the streets behind a horse to his place of execution. Then, he would be hanged, almost to the point of death before being cut down. He was then castrated, his abdomen sliced open, and his bowels pulled out, all whilst conscious. In a final act of brutality, his body would be hacked into 4 pieces and placed on public display for the gruesome and macabre public to goggle at. Yikes. Number 3. Burning at the stake. On the other hand, women found guilty of treason weren't given a particularly light sentence either. Convicted treasonous ladies were tied to a stake and burned alive. Death would either occur through suffocation caused by the inhalation of smoke, or from the fire itself. Occasionally, a treasonous lady might encounter a kind executioner who would tie a bag of gunpowder around the neck of the accused or at the base of the pyre, ensuring a quicker death than slowly burning, and a dramatic, explosive finale for the gathered crowds. Super lucky treasonous ladies would also be strangled while being secured to the stake to spare her from excruciating pain. Number 2. Death by crushing. Less of a punishment and more of a bizarre legal loophole, Tudor law stipulated that it wasn't possible to face a jury for a crime unless a plea had been made by the accused. To force a plea out of the accused, they would have heavy stones placed on them, one after another, until they were either crushed to death under the immense weight or made a plea. Whilst it was a pretty grim way to go, any lands or titles the accused had could not be confiscated after death. This was because, technically, they were never convicted and therefore not a criminal. For someone that faced a deadly serious criminal accusation, death was inevitable. The benefit of this punishment was that even if they were flat as a pancake, at least their loved ones would inherit their family titles and lands. Number 1. Death by boiling. Henry VIII was a notoriously unhinged character with a catalogue of rapidly evolving fears and phobias. One particular fear gripped Henry more than any other: the fear of being poisoned. In 1531, a man by the name of Richard Roos tried to assassinate the Bishop of Rochester. It soon emerged that Richard's weapon of choice was poison. The bishop survived, but several members of his household died. Upon hearing this story, Henry's paranoia was pushed to its limit. In usual super angry Henry Hulk mode, he reacted in the most dramatic way possible. To deter any potential murderers with poisonous intent, he passed an act of poisoning that made the crime of poisoning punishable by the most gruesome method he could imagine: boiling alive. Roos was bound and thrown into a boiling hot pot of water until he died. As far as punishments go, this was particularly painful. It took a long time for an individual to boil to death. Some of the witnesses of the execution were so disturbed that they passed out just watching it. The typically bloodthirsty crowds commented that they would, next time, Rather just watch an axeman at work, please. So what do you think? Which do you think was the most gruesome punishment? Let us know in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to click like and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, see you next time.